So let's imagine you and I, we're rolling down the road and we see this guy and he's yay big and he's just plodding along. You know, he's got his shorts on and he's just plodding along. And we have a tendency to look at him and go, what's that guy doing? Man, that's not gonna do anything. Just keep, plodding along. And we might be a little bit judgmental about it. But then as we pass him, we just kind of look back and we see he's wearing a shirt on the front that says cancer survivor. That changes automatically what we feel about him. Or if the situation was a little bit different, he's plodding along the road and you look at him and you go, man, that guy is just really not in shape. And then your passenger goes, you're right, but you know what? I knew him before and he's already down 200 pounds. Change the way you see it, right? Right? My wife, as an example, I was in my family room, she was in the kitchen, and I was listening to a video, which I do often, and it was loud, and it was this woman singing the national anthem. And she was just, I was listening to it, and Kelly screams from the other room, because she's a great singer. She says, she is awful. Why are you listening to that? And I said, come here, because I'm a good husband. I said, come here. And she comes over and immediately sees that the girl is Down syndrome, and she goes, oh, how beautiful. Now, why did she go from that's horrible to how beautiful? Well, because the way that we think, it's not what happens to us, it's how we interpret what happens to us. And when you have a right piece of information, something can go from being awful to beautiful in just 1 second, but you gotta change the way you see things. In fact, let's take a look at this pyramid. So this is it. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, is what I've studied my entire life, along with theology. Thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, right? So your thoughts, all right, determine your feelings or your emotions, and your feelings or emotions determine your behaviors, and your behaviors reinforce the thoughts. So it's a cycle, right? So let's get real practical about this, because when the Bible teaches us to be joyful in all things, the next question is how? How do I choose that, right? Here you go. So each one of you has a natural tendency to be one of these things. I tend to be a thinker. The two people who are closest to me, Rick Garrett and my wife, say I'm a feeler. Not because I can't feel or think or behave, but you can do all these things. All of us do all three of these things, but you have a natural tendency towards one of these things. So the other day I was thinking and something popped in my head. It was just how many of you have ever had a song get in your head and it's just stuck? Okay, well this was just like obsessive. It was crazy. I was walking around and this was the worst song, right? It was zippity-doo-dah. Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day, my oh my, what a wonderful day, right? And I was like, the whole time I was like, and the more, by the way, the more you try to get rid of it, the more it's just present, right? So what do? I jump out of my thinking, I just let it go rolling, and I start doing something different. In other words, when I jump into my behaviors, it changes what's necessary inside my brain, and I change, and I start doing something else. But let's just say that you have a behavior problem, right? You're working. You're just doing things because you're a natural doer. You pile up every day with all kinds of stuff. And you're thinking to yourself, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed all the time. And then you gotta jump out of the behaving and start thinking, right? You gotta ask yourself questions like, is this stuff actually good for me? Am I accomplishing what I want to accomplish, or am I just have a diffusion of responsibility and not accomplishing anything? Or maybe jump into feelings. How do I feel at the end of the day? Do I feel amazing, or do I feel just drained all the time? So you can start to peel apart the process by looking at each one of these areas and jumping to the one you're not familiar with. If you are overly emotional, you gotta jump into feelings. You just do. Sorry, if you're overly emotional, you gotta jump out of feelings and you gotta start thinking. Do my feelings actually lead me to make wise decisions? And if the answer is no to that, then start analyzing that and thinking through things differently. That's the only way you jump out of what you're stuck in to be able to jump somewhere else and do something different.